Last night, my father-in-law scoffed at my sad little stir-fry, sneering, "Men like you wouldn't last an hour in my house. Weak, useless, a burden." My wife laughed. I sat in silence. No one defended me. Now the calls won't stop. They're begging. The smell of stir-fry wafted through the house, a fragrant blend of soy sauce, garlic, and ginger. I was hopeful it would be a good meal. A simple one, but I was trying to make the Friday dinner a bit more fun, a change from the usual bland routine. I'd made the dish in hopes the kids would enjoy it. The twins, 8 years old, were always picky eaters, and Sasha, my wife, insisted they needed something they could both agree on for the night. A safe choice. A stir-fry seemed safe. I'd spent the last 2 hours in the kitchen. I wanted it to be a good night, especially because of the family gathering. Norman, Sasha's dad, and Jean, her mother, were coming over, as they always did for Friday dinners. Norman would show up late, as usual, with that look on his face, like everything had already gone wrong and it was just the start of a long series of disappointments. When the doorbell rang, I glanced over at Sasha. She was already sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone, not even bothering to help. I knew she was tired of these dinners, but I didn't know why she wasn't making more of an effort to change it. I opened the door, greeting them with the usual pleasantries. Norman strode in first, his bulky frame taking up the hallway as he walked in with a half-smile on his face, like he was trying to decide if it was worth his time. Jean followed closely behind, her expression indifferent, like she'd already mentally checked out. "Smells good, I guess," Norman muttered, walking past me into the dining room, his eyes scanning the food like he was deciding whether it was fit for human consumption. Sasha smiled faintly, but I could see the tension in her posture. She was dreading this, too. "It's just stir-fry," she said, trying to keep it light, but I could tell she wasn't genuinely enthusiastic about it. Norman scoffed and sat down at the table. "Stir-fry? Are you kidding me? This looks like microwaved garbage," he said, eyeing the plate of food with a raised eyebrow. "What? Is this for the kids' sake? You can't even make a proper meal." Sasha looked up from her phone, but she didn't back me up. Instead, she made a face and said, "Yeah, it's pretty bland. But then again, so is his ambition." Her words hit me like a slap. The kids were sitting quietly at the table, clearly feeling the tension in the air. I tried to deflect. "So, how's work been for everyone this week?" I asked, hoping to steer the conversation towards something more neutral. But Norman wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms as he gave me that look, disdain wrapped in feigned indifference. "Work?" he said, half laughing. "You mean that little freelance gig you've got going? Man-child work, right? I just don't get it. A grown man, working from home, making designs like he's still playing in his mom's basement." Sasha didn't say a word. She just stared at her phone, avoiding eye contact. Jean took a sip of wine and clicked her phone open, as though the conversation didn't concern her in the slightest. I could feel the heat rise in my chest, my hands gripping the edge of the table. For a second, I thought I might just get up and walk out of the room. The last thing I wanted was to listen to Norman belittle me in my own home, but I couldn't let the kids see that. They needed some semblance of normalcy, even if it was just for one evening. Trying to keep my composure, I smiled faintly and said, "It pays the bills. But, hey, I'm sure you're right. I mean, you know everything there is to know about success, don't you, Norman?" I tried to sound lighthearted, but it came out flat. Norman's face hardened, and he shook his head. "I'm just saying, Eli, you could do better. You could have been someone who actually contributes to society. Instead, you're sitting here, making web graphics like it's a career." I was done. The kids were starting to get uncomfortable, and Sasha, as always, just sat there in silence. I tried to salvage what was left of the evening, but the damage had already been done. My in-laws had made their opinions clear. Dinner continued in strained silence, with only the clinking of silverware breaking the tension. I realized, in that moment, just how truly alone I was in my own home. Even Sasha, the one person I thought would back me up, had turned against me. And for what? A joke? A comment that Norman would forget in a week? The kids quietly picked at their food, and the conversation eventually limped toward an awkward end. Sasha didn't offer me a single word of support, and by the time her parents left, I was too exhausted to even say goodbye. I spent the rest of the night cleaning the kitchen, the weight of everything settling heavily on my shoulders. It wasn't just the meal that felt ruined. It was the entire evening. And maybe, just maybe, it was the entire marriage. The next morning, the house was eerily silent. The usual hum of the kids' chatter was missing, replaced with a heavy stillness that seemed to suffocate everything. I had been up late, trying to process the dinner and the slow-burning anger that had settled in my chest. But as the morning sun crept through the curtains, I knew I had to get up, get dressed, and pretend like everything was fine. Sasha was already in the kitchen when I shuffled in, looking as though nothing had happened. She was humming to herself as she poured coffee into a mug, her eyes focused on the counter like she had no care in the world. For a moment, I stood there, watching her. She wasn't even trying to make eye contact. "Good morning," she said, her tone forced, like she was the one trying to keep the peace. I nodded, but the tension between us was so thick I could barely breathe. The night before, I had hoped she would talk to me, apologize, something. Anything to show she understood how badly I'd been humiliated in front of her family. But no, nothing. Sasha turned away to grab the sugar, still avoiding my gaze. The twins sat at the kitchen table, the silence between them just as heavy. They knew something was wrong, but none of us had the energy to say it out loud. The usual chatter about cartoons or the weather was missing, replaced by the sound of forks scraping against plates and the soft buzz of the refrigerator. "Are you going to say anything about last night?" I finally asked, breaking the silence between us. Sasha paused for a beat, the spoon in her hand hovering over her coffee. She looked at me, her face unreadable. "What do you want me to say?" The word stung, but I tried to ignore it. "I don't know. I guess I just thought you'd have my back." Her lips tightened. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, Eli. They're just, well, you know how they are. And you didn't really help yourself last night." I stared at her, struggling to process what she just said. "I didn't help myself? You're kidding, right? You didn't say a word while they tore me down. And then you just join in with the jokes about my work?" My voice cracked slightly, but I couldn't stop it. "I thought you were supposed to be on my side." She set her mug down with a soft clink, a sigh escaping her lips as she turned away. "I didn't think it would be that bad. Norman always says stuff like that. I didn't want to make things worse." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was this really happening? By not saying anything? By letting them get away with it? Sasha's face tightened, the irritation flickering in her eyes. "Eli, I don't need to be the mediator every time they show up. You should be used to it by now. It's always like this." Used to it? The idea of just accepting the constant mockery from her family? The idea of letting it slide, like it was no big deal? I could feel my anger bubbling up again, but I had no idea where to put it. The kids, sensing the shift in the room, stopped eating and glanced up at us. Max, the older twin, looked between Sasha and me, his eyes wide. "Mom, is everything okay?" he asked quietly, his voice soft but filled with concern. I froze. The realization hit me hard. It wasn't just Sasha and me in this house anymore. It wasn't just the two of us anymore. It was the kids, too. They saw it all. They saw the way I had been treated, the way Sasha had silently allowed it to happen. I could see the confusion in their eyes, the question in their minds. Why wasn't Mom doing anything? I glanced at Sasha, but she had already turned her back to them, busying herself with something on the counter. It was like she was avoiding this moment, avoiding the truth. "Everything's fine, buddy," I said, forcing a smile that felt too big for my face. I couldn't look at Sasha anymore. I had no idea what she thought she was doing, but it wasn't helping. And it wasn't fair to the kids. I grabbed my keys from the table, trying to calm myself. "I'm taking them to school today," I muttered. Sasha didn't respond, didn't even look up. As I drove the twins to school, the silence in the car was deafening. Max and Liza stared out of the windows, avoiding eye contact. They had always been so full of life, always chatting about their friends or what they saw on TV. But today, there was only a quiet tension between us. I parked in front of the school, the heavy silence still sitting with us. "Okay, kids," I said, turning to face them. "You're going to be fine today. School's going to be great, all right?" I smiled, trying to make it convincing. Liza nodded, but didn't say anything. Max's lips pressed together, his brow furrowed. "Are you and Mom okay?" he asked, his voice low. "You guys seem mad at each other." My heart dropped. I couldn't lie to him. I could feel the tears threatening to come up, but I held them back. I forced another smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. "We're just working through some stuff. You don't need to worry about it, okay?" Max didn't look convinced, but he didn't press. "Okay, Dad," he said softly. "I love you." I kissed them both on the forehead as they got out of the car, my mind still reeling from the morning. I watched them walk inside, my heart heavy. As I sat in the car for a moment longer, I realized something. This wasn't just about last night's dinner. It wasn't just about my in-laws. It was about the fact that Sasha had never stood up for me. It was about the fact that I was slowly losing the family I'd worked so hard to hold together. I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending everything was fine. I pulled out of the parking lot and sat in the car for a moment longer, staring out at the empty road ahead. It was only then that I sent a quick text to Marcus, one of the few people who ever seemed to understand. "Me coffee today?" Within minutes, he replied. "Marcus, of course, man. You okay?" "Me. I don't know anymore." The truth settled into me like a brick. I wasn't okay. And for the first time in a long while, I had no idea what to do next. That night, I didn't cook. I couldn't bring myself to. Instead of standing over a hot stove, chopping vegetables and stirring sauces, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV while the house remained silent. The twins had gone to bed early, probably to escape the tension that still lingered in the air like a fog. Sasha wasn't home yet, her yoga class lasting longer than usual. I didn't know where she had gone, and at that point, I didn't care to ask. I glanced at the clock. It was just after 6:30 p.m. I had to do something. The thought of another night of pretending everything was fine, of pretending I didn't care about the way she treated me, was suffocating. When Sasha came through the door around 7:15, I didn't even look up. She hesitated for a second, standing by the entrance as if weighing whether she should approach me. The sound of the door clicking shut seemed too loud in the quiet house. "Eli," she said cautiously, her voice too light for the heaviness that filled the room. "Why didn't you cook? We're not doing takeout again, are we?" I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I leaned back on the couch, arms crossed, my gaze fixed on the television that was playing some random rerun. "No," I said quietly. "I thought you might want to get takeout for once. You know, since I don't fit your vibe, I figured we could both go for something quick." She blinked, caught off guard by the comment, and walked over to the kitchen. I could hear her rummaging through the drawers, probably looking for a plate. I watched her, not moving, not bothering to help. When she finally turned to face me, she was holding a sandwich in her hand. "You're really not going to talk to me?" she asked, her voice low, but I could hear the annoyance creeping into it. I didn't move. "What do you want me to say, Sasha? That I'm sorry? Because I'm not. Not this time." She sighed, rubbing the back of her neck as if she were trying to process what I said. She sat across from me on the armchair, setting the sandwich down beside her. "You're still upset about last night? Still upset?" I repeated, finally meeting her eyes. "Are you kidding me? I'm not upset, Sasha. I'm just done. Done with how you let your parents talk to me, how you act like nothing happened. You don't even see it, do you? You've been letting them treat me like crap for years, and last night was just the last straw." Her jaw tightened, and I could see the frustration building behind her eyes. "I didn't think it was that bad. It's just Norman. You know how he is." "I don't care how he is," I said, my voice rising despite my attempts to keep it steady. "You should have said something. You should have had my back, but instead, you joined in. You made fun of me, too, Sasha, and I don't even know why I'm still sitting here pretending like I don't care. I do, but I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm done." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open as if she were trying to form a response. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, her fingers curling around the edge of the armrest. "What do you want me to say, Eli? That I'm sorry for how my parents treat you? That I'm sorry I didn't speak up?" "Yes," I said. "That's all I wanted. But instead, you've been silently letting it happen, letting them walk all over me. You let them think it's okay to treat me like I'm some joke, and now you're telling me it's no big deal?" She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping across the floor. "I don't need you telling me what to do. You think I don't see it? You think I don't see how you just let it happen, too? You're the one who's always so damn passive. Maybe I just stopped caring, Eli. Maybe I stopped caring about your little freelance job and the way you let them make fun of you." She snapped the last words out, her voice sharp. I stood up, fury bubbling over, but I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I was too tired for yelling. "I'm passive. You're the one who let your parents walk all over you, too. You never told them to stop. You just let them drag me down. And now, here we are, with you making snide little jokes at my expense." But hey, why would you care? Her eyes widened, her face going pale for a second. She opened her mouth but closed it again, clearly unsure of how to respond. I walked into the kitchen and grabbed my coat, trying to steady my breath. You know what? I don't care anymore. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to be your family's punching bag, and I'm not going to keep pretending. I'm done. Before she could say anything else, I turned toward the door, feeling like I was walking away from everything I had been holding on to. For years, I had let her and her family get away with so much. I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping the peace. But the truth was, I was just letting myself get destroyed. As I grabbed the keys, Sasha's voice stopped me. Where are you going, Eli? I'm not sure yet, I said, my voice hoarse. But I'm done cooking dinner. I'm done keeping the peace. And if you want to keep pretending like none of this matters, then I guess you can keep pretending. But not with me. With that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. And for the first time in years, I felt a little bit of weight lifting off my shoulders. The next few days passed in a strange, suffocating quiet. The house felt smaller, tighter somehow. Sasha and I had hardly spoken, and when we did, it was clipped and awkward, as if every word was an effort. The tension wasn't just between us anymore. It was like a cloud that hung over the entire house, making even the simplest moments feel heavy. I had stopped doing the things I usually did. I didn't make breakfast, didn't prep lunch, didn't do the laundry. I just let things pile up, letting the house reflect the chaos inside me. There were dirty dishes in the sink, clothes strewn across the floor, and toys abandoned in the living room. The twins noticed the change, but they were too young to understand why everything felt different. Sasha, however, noticed. She didn't say anything at first, just silently watched as I let the house slip into disarray. She couldn't ignore it forever. By Wednesday, she'd had enough. She stood in the kitchen, hands on her hips, looking at the pile of laundry I hadn't touched. Are you seriously not going to do anything? She asked, her voice strained, but trying to remain calm. The house is a mess. The kids need their lunches for tomorrow, and the laundry. I didn't look up from where I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. I could feel the anger in her voice, but I didn't care. I'd had enough of her and her family's demands. Enough of being expected to keep everything together while they treated me like an afterthought. Why don't you call your mom? I said flatly. She can come over and clean up. She always seems to have an opinion on how I'm doing things. Sasha froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. I could see the irritation flaring in her eyes. You're being petty. Am I? I replied, finally looking at her. I'm just done, Sasha. Done with the routine. Done with trying to please everyone but myself. Done with being invisible in my own home. If you want the house cleaned, you can do it. I'm done. Her lips pressed into a tight line as she took a step forward. You think this is about the cleaning? This is about you shutting down. You've completely checked out, Eli. The kids are noticing, and I can't. She stopped herself, exhaling as if she were trying to calm down. I can't do this alone. I stared at her, my emotions swirling in a storm of frustration and hurt. I've been doing it alone, Sasha. I've been doing everything for you and your family for years, and when I needed you to have my back, where were you? Now you want me to pick up the pieces again, but I'm not going to. Sasha's face reddened, and her eyes started to glisten, but she held her ground. That's not fair. You're not the only one who's been putting in work around here. You think I don't have my own things to handle? I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. There was too much between us, too much that couldn't be solved by a simple conversation. I had tried for years to hold things together, to be the one who did the work, the one who took care of the house, the kids, everything. And where had it gotten me? Invisible, unappreciated, humiliated by her family. I stood up slowly, walking past her. I'm not your maid, Sasha, I said quietly, making my way to the door. And I'm not going to pretend like everything's fine when it's not. So you figure it out. I'm done trying to keep the peace. Eli, don't, she said, her voice breaking. But I didn't turn around. I grabbed my jacket and headed out, not looking back. Not this time. I needed to clear my head. I drove aimlessly, not caring where I was going. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I ended up at the local coffee shop, sitting in the corner, nursing a cup of black coffee, staring out the window. The sunlight was setting, casting long shadows across the street, and I felt a sense of isolation that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was like the world was moving around me, but I was stuck in place, unable to move forward. After a while, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. You good? I sighed and typed back. I don't know anymore. Within seconds, my phone buzzed again. Come meet me. I'll be at the usual spot in 10. I stood up, leaving a tip for the barista. As much as I hated it, I needed to talk to someone. I needed someone to hear me out, even if it was just for a few minutes. By the time I got home, the house was even quieter than before. The twins were in their rooms, likely already asleep, and Sasha was sitting at the dining table, her phone in hand, scrolling through something. The lights were dim, and the silence was suffocating. I stood by the door for a moment, trying to decide whether I even wanted to engage. But as soon as I stepped inside, Sasha looked up, her eyes meeting mine. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, maybe guilt, maybe frustration, maybe both, but she said nothing. Instead, she put the phone down and stood up slowly, like she was trying to figure out what came next. So, she started, her voice measured, like she was walking on eggshells. Are we going to keep avoiding each other, or are we going to talk about what happened? I sighed. You mean what happened last night? Or what happened after that? Or maybe you mean what happened before that? Because honestly, Sasha, I'm losing track. Her eyebrows furrowed. What are you talking about? You're being dramatic. We've been avoiding this all week. I shook my head, the frustration bubbling to the surface again. Dramatic? Me? No, Sasha. I've been silent for months. I've been biting my tongue, pretending everything's fine. But last night was the breaking point. You let them treat me like a joke, and you just sat there. And now, you're calling me dramatic because I'm not pretending like it's okay anymore? Sasha's expression hardened. You think I don't know that, Eli? You think I don't feel guilty about how things went down last night? I do. But it's not just on me. You didn't help. You sat there and let Norman's comments slide. I threw my hands up. I didn't help. Sasha, you have no idea how many times I've helped. How many times I've bent over backward to make sure everything is perfect. And for what? So your parents can sit at the table and mock me like I'm nothing? I'm not doing it anymore. I can't keep being the punching bag for your family. She stepped forward, her voice rising now, frustration leaking through. You think I don't see that? You think I don't feel guilty for letting it happen? But Eli, this is our life now. Not just yours. I don't know what you want me to do, but I can't keep doing this. It's exhausting. It's draining. And I can't keep defending you every time someone makes a snide comment. I'm not your mother. I blinked, the sting of her words cutting deeper than I expected. You're right. You're not my mother, Sasha. You're my wife. And you should have my back. But you don't. You sit there, silently letting it happen, and then act like it's all my fault for being upset. Her face twisted in anger. You're not being upset, Eli. You're being a damn child. This isn't about them, it's about you. You think I can fix everything? You think I can fix the fact that your ego is bruised because Norman called your job man-child work? Her voice shook with each word, the tension in her body like a pressure cooker about to explode. Grow up, Eli. This isn't some high school drama. It's real life. I don't have time for your tantrums anymore. The words hit me like a slap, and my chest tightened. A part of me wanted to shout, to throw everything I was feeling at her. But instead, I just stood there, my fists clenched at my sides, trying to hold it all in. I could feel the anger rising in me, the desire to say something sharp, something that would cut deep. I'm not having a tantrum, I said quietly, my voice low but full of conviction. I'm telling you how I feel. How I felt for years, Sasha. I've kept it to myself because I thought that was what you wanted. I thought you wanted me to just take it, to keep my mouth shut. But I can't anymore. And you know what? I don't think you care. Her eyes flared with something I couldn't quite read. Anger, hurt, maybe both. You're right. I don't care anymore, Eli. Because no matter what I do, you're never satisfied. You're never happy. You can't be. And I can't keep trying to fix you when you don't even want to be fixed. There it was. The thing I had been fearing for weeks. The thing I knew was coming, but couldn't avoid. I've been trying, Sasha. I said, my voice shaking now. I've been trying for years. But you and your family keep pushing me down. And I'm done. I'm done pretending I don't care. I'm done trying to make things work when you're not even trying. She took a step back, as though my words physically pushed her away. So what now, Eli? What are you going to do? Are you going to leave? I didn't answer her immediately. The weight of her question hung in the air like a guillotine, and I could feel my heart beating harder, faster, in my chest. Maybe, I said, the word hanging heavy between us. Maybe I will. Her face fell, And for the first time in a long while, I saw a flicker of something resembling vulnerability. It didn't soften the anger in my chest, but it was enough to make me hesitate. But before either of us could say anything more, the sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. The twins had come down, and the moment they entered the room, the tension shifted. They stood there, watching us both, sensing something was wrong, but neither of us knew how to explain it. Sasha turned away from me quickly, her face an unreadable mask again as she focused on the kids. "Hey, kids, come on, let's get some dinner. Eli and I need to talk later, okay?" I watched them leave the room, and for a moment, I considered following them. But then I realized there was nothing left to say. I had been talking in circles for too long, and nothing was going to change until we faced the truth. I looked at Sasha one last time. "We'll talk later, but I can't keep doing this." And with that, I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there, her back turned to me as the sound of her deep, steady breaths filled the silence between us. The next evening, Sasha came home from work late, her eyes tired, her movements slow. She didn't say much when she walked through the door, just dropped her bag by the stairs and went straight to the kitchen, trying to make herself a cup of tea like the tension between us didn't exist. I had been packing all day, slowly but steadily, pulling out the kids' backpacks, making sure I had everything they'd need. School schedules, jackets, extra shoes, all of it had to be in order. I was done sitting in a house full of silence, pretending I could hold it all together. Sasha had been quiet all day, like she was waiting for me to snap first. And I did. I snapped when she didn't even try to talk to me. I snapped when she acted like everything could be patched up with a cup of tea and a smile. She hadn't cared enough to even address the fact that I had been treated like garbage the night before. So why should I keep trying to fix things? I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, the sounds of the kettle clicking on, the soft clink of a spoon against a mug. I didn't know how much longer I could take the sound of her just existing in this house, while I felt like I was suffocating. I stood in the hallway, my hand resting on the doorframe of the kids' room. I could hear them murmuring under their blankets, probably wondering why their parents were so distant lately. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine for their sake anymore. I couldn't pretend like I was happy, or that I could keep pretending we were a family when we weren't. I walked into the kitchen, and she glanced up at me when she heard my footsteps. Her expression was guarded, but I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, the faint expectation that I would finally do something, anything, to stop the inevitable. "What are you doing, Eli?" she asked softly, like she already knew the answer. But I couldn't help myself anymore. "I'm packing," I said, my voice steady. "I'm leaving." She froze. The mug in her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't put it down. "What do you mean, leaving?" She let out a nervous laugh, as if she thought I was joking. "I mean, I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore, Sasha. Not like this." My words felt heavy, like they were coated in something too thick for her to brush away. She took a step forward, her hand clutching the mug tightly, her voice tightening with something like panic. "Eli, stop. What are you talking about? You can't just leave. Not like this. You're angry, I get it, but we can fix this. We can." "No." I shook my head, my throat closing up. "I'm done. I'm done pretending. I'm done being your punching bag. Done letting you and your family walk all over me. You never had my back, Sasha, and I can't do this anymore." Her face paled, her breath catching in her throat. "You're just going to walk away?" she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "Just like that? After everything we've been through?" I nodded, my hands shaking at my sides. The weight of it all settled over me, but I wasn't going to stop. "Yes, Sasha. I've given enough. It's over." She stepped back, her eyes wide with disbelief, and then she finally dropped the mug onto the counter, the ceramic shattering on the tiles. "You're going to leave us? What about the kids? What about the life we've built?" The kids. It was always about the kids. It always had been, and it should have been, but it wasn't enough anymore. "I love them, but I can't do this. Not in this house, not in this marriage," I said, my voice steady, though my chest felt like it was about to crack. "I need to show them that I'm more than just someone who's expected to pick up the pieces. I can't keep sacrificing myself for a family that doesn't care enough to fight for me." Her face twisted in something close to anger, but more than that, there was a flash of guilt. "Eli, please," she begged, her voice strained. "You can't just walk away. We'll figure this out. We'll work through it." I shook my head slowly. "I don't think we can, Sasha. Not anymore. I've tried, but you can't make someone care if they don't. And right now, I'm the only one who's been trying. You never stood up for me. Not once. I moved toward the front door, but she rushed in front of me, her hands grabbing at my jacket. Don't do this. You don't know what you're saying. We can fix it, Eli, please. Don't leave me. Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a split second, I felt the smallest pang of regret. But I pushed it away. I had to. For once, I had to think about myself. I'm done, I said, voice quieter now, the words cutting through the heavy silence between us. I'm done being the one who fixes everything, the one who carries it all. You can't make me invisible anymore. She stepped back, her face pale, eyes wide with shock. The kids were asleep upstairs, unaware of what was happening, unaware that their parents' marriage was crumbling in the quiet of their home. I grabbed the packed bags by the door, glancing one last time at Sasha. Her eyes were filled with something I couldn't name. Fear, maybe guilt, maybe a mixture of both, but it didn't matter. It was too late for us. I'll be back for the kids in the morning, I said, my voice a little more fragile than I wanted it to be. But tonight, I need to go. I left the house without looking back. The door clicked shut behind me, and the weight of it all, of everything I was leaving behind, hit me in a way I hadn't expected. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I didn't make it far that night. After a few hours of driving, aimlessly winding through the dark streets, I ended up at Jason's house, 2 hours away from home. It wasn't planned. I hadn't called ahead, hadn't even thought it through, but as I pulled up to his modest place in the suburbs, I knew it was where I needed to be. Jason, my older brother, was one of the few people in my life who'd never judged me. He didn't care about my job or my house or how I kept it together. He just cared about me. Maybe that's why, when I called him earlier that day, he didn't ask questions. He just told me to come over. His house was small, cozy in that way where you could tell it had been lived in. There was a worn-out couch that had seen better days, a coffee table covered with old magazines, and the smell of something faintly like baked bread lingering in the air. It felt real. It felt like home. When I rang the doorbell, Jason opened it almost immediately, his face lighting up in that easy grin of his. You look like hell, man. You all right? I'm not sure, I said, my voice hoarse. But I'm here. Good enough for me. Jason stepped aside to let me in, his warm hand patting my shoulder as I walked past him. I didn't mean to just show up, I muttered, but he just waved it off. Like you even need to explain, he said, closing the door behind me. Your family. Come on, let's get you a drink. You've had a hell of a day, right? I nodded, following him into the kitchen. Jason had a way of making things feel easier, like nothing was ever too big to handle. Even though he had his own struggles, just never the kind that seemed to break him. As he poured me a whiskey, I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, feeling the weight of the day crash down on me. I hadn't realized how heavy everything had been until I sat still long enough to feel it. The anger, the frustration, the hurt. But mostly, the loneliness. Jason slid a glass across the table and took a seat next to me, his gaze steady. So what happened, man? I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly. Everything. It's all falling apart. My marriage, my life. It's like nothing matters anymore. I don't know what I was expecting, but I thought I could just keep going, keep pretending it was okay. I can't do it anymore. I can't keep pretending like I'm not invisible. Jason didn't say anything at first, just listened, letting me talk. Sasha, she doesn't care. Her family doesn't care. And I've spent years, Jason, years, trying to hold everything together, making excuses for her, for them, but last night. My voice faltered for a second. Last night, it was like the final straw. I walked out. I couldn't stay in that house one more second. Jason was quiet, his fingers tapping lightly on his glass as he let me get it all out. It's okay, man, he finally said, his voice steady, like he was trying to give me something to hold on to. It's okay to stop. You don't have to keep carrying everything, especially if no one else is going to carry their weight. But the kids, I said, my throat tight. What about the kids? I know, Jason said softly, his expression shifting to something more serious. But you can't be a dad to them if you're not whole. If you're breaking inside, you can't help them. You've got to take care of yourself first, Eli. They're going to need you, but they need you healthy. Not stuck in a marriage that's suffocating you. Not angry all the time. I nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle in me. I don't even know where to start, I muttered. I feel like I've been a ghost in my own life. Like I've been invisible for so long. I don't even know how to exist outside of that. And now? Now it's like everything's coming down at once. Jason leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed as he stared at me for a moment. You've been carrying a lot of weight for a long time. But now, you need to let it go. You need to start making decisions for you, Eli. And yeah, it's going to suck. It's going to be messy. But you've got to start somewhere. Don't stay where you're not wanted. Don't stay where you're invisible. You deserve better. I don't even know what better looks like anymore, I admitted, feeling the exhaustion settle deep into my bones. You don't have to know right now, he said, his voice firm but kind. You just need to take one step. You're not alone in this. You've got people who care about you. You've got me. I looked at him, feeling a lump form in my throat. For the first time in days, I felt like someone had just thrown me a lifeline. Jason had always been the steady one, the one who didn't lose his cool, even when everything around him was falling apart. But hearing him say that, hearing him tell me I wasn't alone, was like a weight lifting off my chest. You're right, I said, my voice softer now, the tension draining from my body. I've been so caught up in trying to keep things together for everyone else, I forgot about myself. Jason smiled, his expression lightening. It happens, man. But now it's your turn. Take care of yourself first. The rest will fall into place. I nodded slowly, finally letting out the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Jason was right. I couldn't keep pretending like I was fine. I needed to take the first step toward reclaiming my life, for me. I didn't have all the answers, but at least now, I wasn't carrying everything alone. The next few days felt like an emotional storm was brewing. Every time I checked my phone, there was a new barrage of texts and missed calls from Sasha, her parents, even mutual friends. They were all trying to get in touch with me, as if their voices could break through the wall I had put up. But I wasn't answering. Not a single one of them deserved my attention. They had made their choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. By Thursday morning, my phone had nearly exploded with messages. Sasha texted first, of course. Sasha, please, can we talk? I know you're upset, but we need to fix this. I don't want you to leave, Eli. I don't want to lose you. I read the message over and over, trying to figure out how it had all gone so wrong. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell her everything, to lay out all the pain and hurt she'd caused. But instead, I just stared at my screen, the words sitting there, unanswered. It wasn't just her I had to fix things with, it was me. Then came the barrage from Jean and Norman. Jean, we are really concerned. Eli, you need to stop this. You can't just walk away from your family. We've always had issues with the way you're handling things, but this is too far. Please don't do something you'll regret. Norman, I can't believe you're doing this, Eli. A real man doesn't leave his family. You've got responsibilities. It's time to grow up and face your role in this. You can't just run away from everything. I didn't even read Norman's message completely. His words felt like the last nails in the coffin. The same judgment, the same condescension I'd endured all those years, now masked as concern. It made me sick to my stomach. They never saw me. Not really. They never saw the years of effort, the years I spent holding everything together. They saw me as nothing more than a tool they could use when it suited them. Then came the mutual friends, all of whom seemed to think they had a right to intervene. Marcus was the only one who didn't try to guilt-trip me, but even his message felt like a little too much pressure. Marcus, I know you're going through something right now, man. But don't let yourself spiral. Take a breath, okay? This is temporary. Just take it one step at a time. It was well-meaning, but the weight of everyone's expectations was starting to feel like a crushing weight. I hadn't realized how much of my life had been spent trying to please everyone but myself. It wasn't just Sasha or her family, it was all of them. Every text, every message, every call was a reminder that no one was really listening to me. No one was paying attention to what I needed. I put the phone down and stared at the walls of my brother's house. Jason's calm words echoed in my mind, and for the first time in days, I felt a small flicker of clarity. I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. I wasn't going to let their guilt trips or their emotional games pull me back into their orbit. It was Friday evening before I heard from Sasha again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I knew she'd be waiting for an answer, but this time, I was ready to give it. Sasha, Eli, please come home. I can't keep doing this. We need to talk, face to face. I sat down on the couch and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I let myself process everything. The hurt, the betrayal, the loneliness, and, most of all, the realization that I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't matter. I had been pushing myself aside for so long, thinking that was what love looked like. But no more. I picked up the phone and started typing. Me, I'm not coming back yet. We need to talk, but not like this. I need space, Sasha. I need to figure out what's next. For me, not for anyone else. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Not 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't from Sasha. It was from Jean. Jean, you've really broken this family, Eli. Do you know that? You're making a huge mistake. If you really loved Sasha, you wouldn't do this. You'll regret it. The weight of those words felt heavy in my chest, but I refused to give in. I knew this wasn't about love. It was about control, and I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned my phone off, leaned back against the couch, and closed my eyes. The next few days passed in a blur. I kept my phone off as much as possible, and when I did check it, there were more texts, more calls, more guilt trips. It didn't matter. I was done listening. By Sunday, I had found an apartment, a small place not far from Jason's, but far enough that I could breathe. I didn't care if it was temporary. I just needed a space that was mine. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life. I could finally have a life that was about me. I didn't tell anyone yet. Not Sasha. Not her family. I couldn't. I needed time to settle, to clear my head. But as I sat on the edge of the bed in my new place, looking around at the empty walls, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. It had been a week since I moved into the new place. The apartment was small, but it was mine. I had the freedom to sit on the couch without worrying about anyone walking in and asking for something. I could leave dishes in the sink without feeling like I was neglecting responsibilities. I could let the silence hang in the air for hours if I wanted to. There was no one to judge me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was living under a microscope. But that didn't last. On the 7th day, I woke up to a text that sent a jolt of frustration through my chest. Sasha, I'm coming over to talk. I need to see you. Please. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, my finger hovering over the reply button. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to hear her explain herself, or tell me how much she missed me, or whatever else she had planned. I had made up my mind. I had chosen to step away, and there was nothing she could say that would make me go back. But then, as I stood there, staring at the text, I remembered the kids. The thought of them caught me off guard, the weight of it like a sudden rush of cold water. I hadn't seen them in days. They had been with Sasha, and as much as I wanted to remain firm in my decision, I knew I had to see them. I had to check on them, even if it meant facing Sasha. I swallowed my frustration, put my phone down, and went to take a quick shower. By the time I was finished, I had texted her back. Me, okay, come by at noon. I didn't expect her to show up early, but sure enough, the doorbell rang at 11:45. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and there she was, standing in the doorway, holding a bag with something that smelled like baked goods. Her face was the picture of exhaustion, her eyes red from lack of sleep or maybe from crying. She looked smaller, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with her. Eli, she said, her voice soft, almost hesitant. I didn't let her finish. Come in, I said, stepping aside. I don't want to keep doing this in the doorway. She walked in, her eyes glancing around at the empty space. The apartment was basic, barely furnished, but it was clean, and that was enough for me. I didn't need anything fancy. All I needed was a place where I could breathe without suffocating. She sat down on the couch without waiting for an invitation. I sat across from her, our eyes meeting briefly before she dropped her gaze. You've been avoiding me, she said, her voice quieter now. I've tried reaching out, but you won't talk to me. What am I supposed to do, Eli? I exhaled, trying to keep my composure. You can start by understanding why I left. I do understand, she said quickly, looking up at me. I do, but I'm still trying to figure out how we got here. I don't want to lose you, Eli. I don't want to lose this family. This family, I repeated, shaking my head. Sasha, you don't get it. You never have. It wasn't about me being angry or needing space. It was about you and your family treating me like I don't matter. You didn't back me up. You just let them tear me down. And you never once stood up for me. That's what got us here. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of pretending like I don't deserve to be treated like an equal in this relationship. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place. Regret? Guilt? Maybe both. I didn't know what to do, Eli. I didn't know how to fix it, so I did nothing. But I see it now. I see how wrong I was. I leaned forward, my elbows on my knees, trying to steady myself. It's too late for that, Sasha. I've been invisible for years, and I'm done pretending like it doesn't matter. I want a life where I matter. I want to be seen. She looked at me, her voice shaking slightly. I see you, Eli. I always have. No, I said, my voice firm. You saw what you wanted to see. You saw a guy who could pay the bills and keep the peace. But you didn't see me. Not really. You didn't see how much it hurt every time your parents made fun of my job, or how I tried to hold everything together and ended up getting nothing in return. You didn't see me, Sasha. Her eyes filled with tears now, and she wiped them away quickly, like she was embarrassed. I didn't want to hurt you, but I know I did. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. For not being there when you needed me. For letting you carry all of it. The silence between us grew heavy, suffocating. I could feel my resolve cracking just a little. She was sorry, sure. But was it enough? Could I really go back to that life? A life where I was second place. Where I was always the one who gave, the one who held it together, while she took and took. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Sasha. I said quietly, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I don't know if I can go back to pretending like everything is okay when it's not. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I understand, Eli. I don't want to lose you, but I understand. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know if I could forgive her. Not yet, at least. Maybe not ever. The kids came running down the stairs at that moment, their laughter filling the room like it always did. Max and Liza stopped short when they saw us sitting together. They exchanged confused glances before coming over and sitting down next to me. Are you and Mom okay? Max asked, his voice soft. I looked down at him, my chest tightening. I wanted to say everything was fine. I wanted to tell them that we were working through it, that everything would go back to normal. But it wasn't, and I couldn't lie to them anymore. I don't know, buddy, I said, my voice thick. But we're going to figure it out, okay? Liza nodded, leaning her little head against my side. Sasha's hand brushed her hair out of her face, and for a moment, it felt like we were all stuck in this uncomfortable limbo, unsure of what came next. Sasha took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging. We'll talk later, she said quietly, standing up. I'm sorry, Eli. I am. But I didn't think it would change anything. The damage had already been done. It had been a couple of weeks since Sasha and I had that conversation in my apartment. The emotional toll had been heavier than I expected, and I was still processing everything. The anger, the hurt, the guilt, but mostly, the relief. I had been free for a while now, truly free, in a way I hadn't felt in years. I had started putting the pieces of my life back together. I had my own apartment, a small space that was perfect for me and the kids when they stayed over. I'd set up a basic homeschooling schedule for them, figuring out routines that didn't feel rushed or suffocating. I wanted to make sure they knew they still had some semblance of stability, even if their parents were struggling to find theirs. The evenings, though, were the hardest. When the kids weren't around, the silence would creep in, and I'd find myself sitting on the couch, staring at the walls, wondering if I was really doing the right thing. It wasn't about whether I loved Sasha anymore. That much was clear. I still cared about her. I always would. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I was finally learning what it felt like to take care of myself, to make decisions for my own peace. I had spent years being the one who kept everything together. For Sasha, for the kids, for her family. But now, for the first time in a long time, I was focused on myself. No more pretending to be someone I wasn't. No more second-guessing every choice I made. I was learning what it meant to set boundaries. The morning routine was no longer a chore. I'd wake up before the kids, make a cup of coffee, sit on the porch and watch the sunrise. It was my time. Time I had forgotten how to claim. Time that had been taken away by the relentless rhythm of everyone else's needs. One morning, as I was getting the kids ready for their homeschooling session, I got a message from Sasha. I wasn't expecting it, but I had grown used to the occasional text, usually just about the kids or a reminder about something they needed. Sasha, I want to talk to you, Eli. Can we meet today? I'm ready to talk about everything. Really talk. I stared at the message, my stomach tightening. After everything, after the silence, After the weeks of distance, she wanted to meet. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I was ready to hear what she had to say. But I couldn't deny that I needed some closure. For me. For the kids. For the future. I texted back. Okay. Meet me at the park in an hour. When I pulled up to the park, I could see her sitting on a bench near the lake, her posture still tense, but there was something different about her. She wasn't trying to hide behind her usual defenses. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes focused on the water in front of her, like she was waiting for something. I walked up slowly, unsure of how this would go. I hadn't seen her in person like this, just the two of us, in weeks. Not since that night. When she saw me, she stood up. For a moment, we just stood there in silence, looking at each other. It felt strange, awkward almost, but it was the kind of silence that was needed. We had to find the words, even if they weren't the perfect ones. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," I replied, my hands shoved deep into my pockets. The last time I saw her like this, we were on the verge of breaking, and now, I wasn't sure what had changed, except that I had finally found my peace. She took a deep breath, like she was trying to steady herself. I don't know how to start this. I just know that I'm sorry, Eli, for everything. For not seeing you, for not hearing you. I took you for granted. And I've spent the last few weeks realizing how much I've hurt you. You didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve any of it. I felt a knot form in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. It's not just about the apology, Sasha. It's about what happens next. It's about us finally being honest with each other. You've spent so many years trying to make everyone else happy that you didn't even realize what was happening between us. She nodded, her eyes glassy. I know. I've been selfish, Eli. And I've been scared. Scared that if I really heard you, I'd have to face the fact that I had lost you. And I didn't want to admit that I was part of the reason we were falling apart. I stood there for a long moment, processing her words. For so long, I had been angry with her, angry that she didn't see me, angry that she let her family control the narrative. But now, standing in front of her, I could see the truth in her eyes. The regret, the understanding. I don't want to hate you, Sasha, I said finally, the words heavy in my throat. I just want to feel like I matter. I want to feel like I'm not just the person who holds everything together. I need to take care of myself, and if you can't respect that, then maybe we need to take a step back. She stepped closer, her voice trembling slightly. I respect that, Eli. I do. I've been so wrapped up in my own fears that I couldn't see what you were going through. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose this family. The silence between us felt different now. It wasn't filled with tension or anger. It was filled with uncertainty, with the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we could start over. I don't know what's going to happen, Sasha, I said, my voice quiet. But I need time. I need to figure out what's next for me, what's best for me and the kids. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not. I understand, she said softly, her voice steady now. I'll give you the time you need. I'll wait. But I won't stop trying to show you that I'm willing to change. I don't want to lose you, Eli. Not like this. For a moment, we just stood there, the weight of the words hanging in the air, the promise of something new, but also the reality that things couldn't go back to how they were. Not completely. Not unless we both changed. I think that's the best we can do right now, I said, my voice quiet. One step at a time. She nodded, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. One step at a time, she echoed. I turned to leave, feeling the weight of everything settle over me, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. It was manageable. It was something I could handle. As I walked away, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel joy either, but I felt something else. Something important. I felt like I had taken back control.